It is time to heckle the Eckle, where we look at the matchup analytically between Nebraska and UCLA. We'll look at the Nebraska offense versus UCLA defense first.
And what is the Eckle, John?
The Eckle is
this could be someone's first segment in their car right now.
Anytime you either score on a big play touchdown or at least gain a first down inside the opponent's 40-yard line.
That's the
Your
Eckle.
honor. It feels all very legalese. There's too many. There's too many things.
Right, let's get back to the
stat.
stats,
Should
John.
be one thing, not many things.
But one thing that's going to stand out is this is going to be the battle of whose Eckle is worse.
Yeah.
Nebraska is 116th in points per Eckle.
Yep.
While UCLA's defense is 115th in allowing points when you get inside the 40. So something has to give here. Either that or this game's going to be played out between the 40-yard lines.
But I don't think it is because they being UCLA, horrible at allowing teams to drive into the Eckle zone. 132nd out of 134 teams. And what do we know about Nebraska's offense, John? They are good at moving the ball, 11th in the country at that same stat. So I feel comfortable in saying that Nebraska is going to get the ball inside of the UCLA 40. Can they finish those drives? At the very least, we do know now that Nebraska can make field goals, or at least they did last week. The snaps were still bad on all three of them. They were high and inside, but they were able to get it down. Nice job, Buschini. And Hull was able to knock those field goals in. But, man, you do not want to settle for field goals. You want to get touchdowns. They're going to be able to drive. Can they finish?
One thing about UCLA is they're good against the run.
Teams don't run against them.
But more susceptible against the pass. If you take a look at the run rate over expected, UCLA leads the country in teams throwing the ball when you expect them to run it.
Yep.
Nearly 12% more or 12% fewer runs when expected than the average college football team.
Yeah, and it's because
leads the country.
Yeah, their pass defense isn't very good. And so I dived into the numbers a little bit more because I was wondering, okay, how much of this is that teams are solid against them running the ball, but they have more success? The answer to that is no. They give up the 13th fewest yards per game on the ground, but when you look at the average, because that was the thing that I was going to look at. I was like, okay, maybe the average, they give up a lot of yards per carry. No, 22nd best in the entire country. Carries per game, they only see the 6th fewest carries per game. So it's a team that does not give up a whole lot of yards on the ground, and so teams just decide to throw the ball all over them. So for those who want Nebraska to run the ball, I don't know if this is going to be the matchup to do so, though Satterfield, I know, has talked about it at times the last couple of weeks.
We've added one more category. Michael Severe is big on havoc caused versus havoc allowed. Now, in this particular matchup, Nebraska offense, UCLA defense, Nebraska is 88th in allowing havoc, but UCLA's defense is only 97th in causing it. So it's kind of a push here in that particular matchup, but it is going to show itself as we switch the page to the opposite side of the ball, UCLA's offense versus Nebraska's defense.
Yeah, let's just start with that stat alone. Havoc allowed for UCLA, 118th in the country. Nebraska, havoc caused, 17th in the country.
In other words, Nebraska should be able to create some havoc-inducing plays. And again, havoc is a tackle for loss. It's a defended pass, deflected pass, pass breakup, an intercepted pass.
Oh, yeah.
And a forced fumble. Those are all havoc plays.
Couple things.
And Nebraska's got a huge advantage on this side of the matchup. Another thing that stands out as well, because UCLA does not run it very well, they're only 108th in the country in EPA per rush, third in the run rate over expected, meaning they pass the ball 9% more of the time than they are expected to. So they are going to be heavy on the pass, just as teams are heavy on the pass against them.
Yeah, for sure.
What this ultimately might tell you, besides who wins and loses, it could be a long game. It could be a lot of passes. It could be a longer game because the ball's in the air more.
More time for that free pizza at Cross Train.
Bingo.
Going back to the havoc, going back to UCLA and what they have or haven't been able to do. They give up a lot of sacks. They are 103rd in the country. They've given up 20 sacks on the year. You look at the interceptions. We talked about this a little bit earlier with the sideline reporter Wayne Cook for UCLA. They have also thrown quite a few interceptions, 9 of them on the year, which is 102nd best in the country. Ethan Garbers had an interception in every game that he played in before the game versus Rutgers. That's easily his best performance of the season. 4 touchdowns through the air, 1 touchdown on the ground, and he did not give the ball up through the air, though he did have a fumble in that game. He struggles, man. He has really struggled, and we asked earlier when we had a chance to talk with Wayne, why is that? How much of it's him? How much of it's the line? Because he was not very high on the line. He basically says 50-50. It's both. And hey, Nebraska's defensive line, when the defense is playing well, they are playing well. So this could certainly be a game where they get to eat a little bit.
Now, a lot of this is built on the backs of a pretty tough schedule against Rutgers.
Yeah.
They weren't this bad. But take a look at those middle 3 categories. In Eckel rate,
bad.
Offense, 100th in the country.
Yeah.
In points per Eckel, even worse than Nebraska,
Yeah,
131st. And in field position,
bad.
Their average starting field position is 129th in the country. Again, a lot of that built on the backs of playing teams like Oregon, like Indiana. They were better against Rutgers, but for the season, they have been playing with their backs against the wall and haven't driven it very far down the field when they've had it.
And how about after 2 straight opponents that Nebraska's defense has seen who are really good on those early downs, they are now playing one who sucks, 119th in the country. And I can't remember what Ohio State was last week or Indiana, but if I remember right, they're both top 5.
Yes.
They were both, and Ohio State might have been number 1 going into that game. So those teams were really good on the early downs. UCLA, not so much. The 3rd and 4th down success rate, also bad, 90th in the country. And last week, 2 weeks ago versus Ohio State versus Indiana, those numbers were also really good. So the last 2 opponents were good on the early downs. When they got to 3rd and 4th down, they were still good. Nebraska shut down Ohio State. They went 1 for 10 on 3rd downs, or 1 for 11 on 1 for 10 on 3rd downs. They had 11 first downs on the game versus Nebraska. If they can have some early success, you're going to be feeling pretty good.
Now it's time for the radar report.
Yeah, let's dive into the charts on this one. And after looking at
radar love,
looking at some teams that were better than Nebraska,
whoa,
wow, it's a lot different when you look at a team who sucks. And friends, UCLA, don't listen to what the lamestream media would tell you about their strength of schedule. In all seriousness, their numbers are just not very good. I don't even know how to describe what is this, John? It's like an angel. It's like when you go to a park and they have those weird creatures. This kind of looks like that. Like an artist made an angel out of car parts.
Oh.
This is kind of what theirs looks like. The only thing that their defense does that is like solid, I guess, is passing success rate, defending the pass, and then passing explosiveness, which, hey, of all the teams to play, I guess Nebraska would be the one to play,
This is
right?
kind of a bend but don't break defense. They don't allow a ton of explosives, but you can move the ball if you're patient enough down the field. So it's kind of interesting because Nebraska, at times, Matt Rule has lamented the fact that they've lacked some explosive plays. I don't know if necessarily this is the week to get it, but if they can be patient enough, they can still make some hay down the field.
Yeah, the other thing that really jumped out to me, if you're looking for Nebraska advantages, we were just talking about early downs. Their EPA on early downs, UCLA's defense is horrible. And Nebraska could certainly find some success there. That is one of the biggest disadvantages. That and stuff rate is one of the other ones that kind of jumps out to me when Nebraska is on offense and UCLA is on defense.
Which is surprising considering how much they are better against the run, but yet the stuff rate hasn't been there. So I think there is room to run in this game.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to have to nibble at it.
Nibble?
Little
nibble boys?
At times.
Little nib.
Looking at the other side, it looks like the stars.
It looks like the open of Buck Rogers with all the stars flying.
Yeah, it really the things that UCLA is good at, Nebraska is not, and the things that UCLA is bad at, Nebraska is.
It looks like hair in a ponytail.
Oh,
a small ponytail.
See, I think it looks like what's the Starks? What is their
wolf?
Yeah, it looks like
the
a dire
wolf.
wolf. Yeah. Rushing EPA per play. Theirs is better than what Nebraska's shows in terms of defending it, which is a little surprising. They do have explosive plays. And when I was bouncing around watching a handful of their games earlier today, that was the thing that I noticed is when they were able to move the ball, and especially, John, in their game 2 weeks ago versus Rutgers, they had some big-time plays, whether it was the run that was the longest run of the year that they had, the 49-yard touchdown that they had in that game by their quarterback, who had more yards, Garbers did, on that one run than he has all year because of all of the sacks. So that thing stood out to me. But otherwise, man, you just look and it seems like where Nebraska is really strong. You mentioned Havoc a few moments ago. It seems like that could be one of the things. And again, the early down numbers, they show itself on the chart here as well, where Nebraska has done really good on early downs, or certainly better than average. UCLA, very below average. So one of the spots that Nebraska should take advantage of.
So there you go. Little heckle the echo today. I mean, certainly the numbers point out that Nebraska should be favored in this game and could cover your 2-score minimum or 10-point minimum. But then the question is, where are they up here? Because all of these numbers are fine and dandy, but as we've seen at times with Nebraska football, it's about what's up here, what's between the ears.
It all comes down to the head.
Yeah, a couple more things. Eric Hess, who writes for Husker Max, Arbitrary Analytics is what he goes by on Twitter. He had some really great numbers in his write-up yesterday. UCLA faced the most pass attempts of any team in the Big Ten. They've allowed the most passing yards, the highest completion percentage, and the most touchdowns passing. If there was ever a get-right game for Dylan Raiola and Nebraska's passing offense to return to the September form, this seemingly would be the one. They only have 10 sacks. UCLA does. When they are on defense, 5 of them came back in their opener. So when I'm watching them earlier today and I see sacks, like, it was kind of notable because it's like, oh, there was the one sack that they had in the football game. So if you're Nebraska, you should be able to protect Dylan Raiola well. And look, the final score of the Penn State game is 27-11.
Mm-hmm.
I was paying attention to that game, though my focus wasn't entirely on it when it was happening. So it was nice to rewatch some of it today. I don't know, man. I come away from that game not as impressed by UCLA as I was in the moment. They covered very easily in that game. The touchdown to make it 27-11 comes with 16 seconds left. They're down 27-3. They score a touchdown, they get a 2-point conversion. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't think that score is as indicative of what they are. I think the UCLA LSU game is. I thought that they played really well in that game, especially in the first half. It was tied at halftime. The Indiana game is now so long ago, but they got destroyed in that game. But otherwise, they have looked better for sure. In the Rutgers game, it was interesting, man, in terms of how they played and especially how they played in the second half. They got some big plays. Nebraska, hold them to fewer big plays, and I think they're going to be okay.
Jacob writes in the YouTube comment section, I have Michigan State vibes about this game. I'm nervous.
I've heard a lot of people say that this week, and I get it because same record as last year, 5-3. Mm-hmm. This is actually their third consecutive game, Nebraska's, to get to bowl eligibility, whereas last year it was the first. I get it. It's a home game, though. It's a home game, and I think that Nebraska was coming off of a win last year at this time. They're coming off of a loss this time. I get it. If you want to have that opinion, I'm not going to stop you, but I'm not getting those vibes with this team.
The only I guess the vibes I would be getting about this is now you're starting. They're playing with a little more confidence after navigating a tough schedule. They went all the way across the country, played really well, especially on offense, against Rutgers the week after Rutgers almost beat Nebraska, and then got a week to rest, to get healthy, to just soak in some positive that hadn't happened for them this season. Remember, they played in week 0.
Yeah.
Their only other win was in week 0. So it had been a while since they had won. So now at least they'll come in with maybe a fresher mindset than they would have if maybe the roles had been reversed and they hadn't played that Rutgers game yet.
Yeah.
And so, and as Wayne Cook, our guest earlier, mentioned, I mean, there are some talented dudes on this team.
For sure.
This is a roster that is not bereft of good football players. It's just, with the changeover, new coaching staff, the schedule that they faced, It's been a little difficult. I think UCLA will give Nebraska some fits. I think Nebraska will win, but I think they have the ability to give Nebraska fits. And if the Huskers get a little sloppy,
and it's going to rain a little bit,
and it is going to rain a little bit, if the Huskers get a little sloppy, that's when the upset opens. The door to upset opens up wide.
Certainly, if Nebraska
so
played
as long
like
as they take
did,
care of the ball, I think they'll be okay.
But if they play like they did in October, it's gonna be a long game. If they don't, if they can clean up some of those mistakes, and if they can force UCLA into their own mistakes, like they have had a lot this year, except for that win versus Rutgers, this could be a game where, I don't know, they win by double digits, and you're eating pie with a smile.
I'm
on your
eating
face,
pie because pie is delicious,
and I'm smashing it in your face as Nick is licking it off of you.
I love pie.
Off of John's face.
There will be no smashing of the pie.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Although I guess if I did have to lick John's face, I'm glad it's at least
no.
apple
You're not
cinnamon
licking
flavored.
anybody's face, you sicko.
Jacob says, as a follow-up, I will say winning this game definitely shows progress. Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does.
Well, yeah, it'd be a 6-win for first
time
since 2016.
Yeah, it would. Indeed it would.